You're now listening to Let the Jameson Sink In with your hosts, Violet and Pav, where we discuss your anonymous perspectives and tea on real life topics from relationships, sex, politics, celebrity gossip, and everything in between.
Our next topic is, if we are so modern, why are men who express their emotional side not praised, but rather seen as a simp or less of a man? So this conversation came about because kind of tied into our last month's topics about are you a type, and terms like alpha male and stuff like that were thrown around, and terms like simp, which is I'm pretty sure it's a new word because I've only heard of it this year, to be honest, but it's obviously thrown around in a negative fashion if a man is sensitive or acts that they're trying too hard almost. But obviously a wider conversation piece around this is not just in dating circles, but I think in being able to show their emotions in social circles with their friends, their family, etc., without fear of judgment. So on our page we put up, last week was Men's Health Week, and after doing some research, we found out that statistics show that 75% of suicides are men, and they'll be the last to ask for help, but it appears that they're the ones that sort of require it the most, because that statistic is shocking in itself. And yeah, I mean, I really hope this episode helps men sort of speak up a bit more and ask for help if they need to. But yeah, I'm just going to open up to the gents. So do you guys openly talk about your emotions? If so, why, like, how do you feel like you're perceived? And if not, then why don't you talk about your emotions? So yeah, whoever wants to take it away.
I'll have a first go at answering the question. So yeah, I think it's a great question. I think that over time, I feel like society in general has become more open to men discussing their feelings, men being open about struggling with their mental health. And I think it's just a natural process as well for me, in terms of getting older and having that self-confidence to be open about my emotions, my feelings, and all the rest of it. So I feel like, maybe a decade ago, maybe when I was in my teenage years or in my early 20s, I wouldn't have felt as comfortable talking about anything that I was going through, or my emotional side, or all the rest of it. And of course, I guess there was also a dynamic for me where when you're around a group of guys, you want to, you don't want to appear as, any less of a man than them. And so I guess the process of aging for anybody, right, is the process of confronting all of the more toxic lessons that you learn as a kid, right? And I feel like for me, the lesson that I kind of picked up just from people around me was that, men don't speak about these kind of things, and you have to always be strong and all the rest of it. But as I said, I feel like the process of growing up, the process of my 20s, and just trying to figure out what kind of man I want to be, and the example of people in my life, my family, my friends, people that I admire, I do think I'm at a moment, and I think it's also can be said to an extent for people in society in general, where me discussing with my male friends, for example, that, oh, by the way, I've had this particular, issue, or in any way I'm struggling. I think that what I've learned is that it basically gives confidence to my friends to also open up, right? Because this is the thing. It's not like anybody actually meets this ideal of the Superman who never has any mental health issues, or who is just always strong and all the rest of it. Everybody has got some kind of issue. And I feel like, particularly now that I've moved from England, moved to Canada, I've had that period of like emotional self-reflection about my life. And I've met people who have also gone through a similar period of emotional self-reflection in their lives. As I said, I feel like me discussing any of my issues gives permission, gives confidence to other people to also discuss the issues. And you realize that, it's like this realization that why weren't we speaking about this before if we're all going for the same thing? It's just like you realize that this model of masculinity, like nobody actually meets it, and instead what's really masculine, at least for me, what's really confident and what's really just powerful is where you have the confidence to be who you actually are and not have to hide it and not have to pretend to be something that you're not.
Yeah, 100% agree. And yeah, I agree with you as well. I found that as well when I because I started therapy about 2 months ago, and yeah, it's definitely benefited. And I'm not someone that sort of shies away from telling people what I'm doing. So I have told people like openly, I put it on my Instagram and stuff that I'm in therapy and stuff, and I talk about it. And then it's actually been surprising how many men have actually sort of been like, oh, I've definitely thought about it, and it's obviously something that until it's brought up, they don't want to talk about it. So you're right. Whenever you do have these kind of conversations and you realize everyone's going through similar struggles, similar paths, like especially Dolapo, like you mentioned, sort of moving to Toronto. Obviously, I've moved to Toronto as well, and I think that was one thing that I've realized has been a massive sort of strain on my mental health, just for various reasons. But yeah, it's just I didn't really acknowledge that until I started therapy, and I was like, damn, but 100% would recommend therapy to anyone that's listening, to anyone on this call that's not in therapy. I would highly recommend it. It's definitely benefited my life. Anton, same question to yourself about, do you open up to your social circles, partners, etc., about your feelings? Or
well, first of all, this is just me. A man is a man, I mean, if you're religious, you know that God made man. And then he was the one who was taking care of the Garden of Eden. Then he was lonely, and then he made a woman. What I get from that is a man, I mean, you are the one who practically, you should, how can I say this? You're in control. I mean, as it relates to emotion, I mean, a man, I never show my emotion, and I think I should not show my emotion because I'm a man. And normally, we have to be strong, especially for women, because they show more emotion than us. What if I'm going through something emotional and she's going through something emotional? Then what's going to happen? Who's going to be there for us? I'm not even talking about getting therapy, because if you're in Jamaica, you'll never see a man in therapy in Jamaica. There's no way that's going to happen. So I just believe, I mean, as a man, because I think for us also, I mean, everyone has a breaking point, obviously. Everyone has a breaking point, but you can just bottle up your emotions and then eventually it will just fade. I mean, you have to be strong. That's how I see it. You just have to be strong as a man. I mean, I've had a lot of problems, and I mean, even with my friends, girlfriends, family and stuff. But what can I do? I mean, I can say I'm strong enough to keep my emotions and just say, brush it off and move on. Some men, they can't. That's why they commit suicide and stuff. But also, even here in Jamaica, if we had, as I said, if we had a medium for men to express themselves, maybe that could work. But then, even if we do have it, I don't think men will attend, or I don't think they would participate or do anything, because I mean, especially, I'm speaking because I'm in Jamaica and I'm seeing what's going on here. It also has to do a lot with the culture here in Jamaica. I mean, the guys in Jamaica, even for me, they're rough. They're so rough. They're so hardcore. It's like, yo, I'm a man. I'm indestructible. I have no emotions. I'm Iron Man. So you can throw bullets at me. You can do anything you want, and guess what? It's not gonna hurt me. But yet deep down, it does hurt. But then what do? Who can they talk to? If you understand what I'm trying to say. So because of that, we just keep it. We keep it.
Let me just ask you a question though, Anton, on that. Because for me, you're one of the most well-traveled persons I know, or probably the most traveled person I know. So not even just looking at the perspective of Jamaica, but you've also lived in quite a few countries. You've lived in the Middle East. You've traveled all across Asia. You now live in the US. Do you think this is worldwide? not just Jamaica?
Okay. For the Middle East, I don't know if you guys know, but the man comes first in the Middle East, and everything is a man. For example, if you go to a restaurant, the waiter or waitress has to hand the man the menu first. The man has to place his order first. Even when COVID just came in, if there's a male and a female and you're supposed to check the temperature, you have to check the man first. You have to sanitize him first before the woman. If you're married, when you go to a restaurant, you're the one who's supposed to order for your wife. So I think it's also different if you go to Asia now. Men in Asia, for me, they're a bit feminine, or maybe because I'm hardcore, but I don't know. They will more express themselves, especially in Japan. Well, not Japan, sorry. I should say South Korea. The men in South Korea, they're very expressive. They're more expressive than women. But if you should go to Japan, the men in Japan, they're more of a silent type. They bottle everything in. And then, as Pav said earlier, bottle everything in. Then when they reach their limit, they'll just commit suicide. They literally have a mountain in Japan called Suicide Mountain where the men go and kill themselves. And then I think it's a Western thing. I think Western guys are more stronger than Asian guys. I mean, that's just my opinion and what I've experienced. And how can I say this? And I think we should reach a point where, I mean, it's hard to discuss. I mean, this topic is I'm not gonna say it's sensitive, but it's very hard because for me, I can say I'm a go-getter. You know, I'm a go-getter. I see what I want, I go get it. I don't think about emotions. I don't think about anything. I know what I want. That's what I want. I go get it. Whereas someone else will be second guessing. Maybe I shouldn't. For example, talking to a girl. Maybe no. Maybe I'm too dark. Maybe I'm too fat. Or maybe my hair is not straight enough. Maybe I don't smell good. For me, I don't care. I will just go. I don't know if that answers the question, or maybe I'm off topic.
No. It's good. It's good. So just to sort of clarify, you say you don't agree with, or it's not in your personality to open up or talk about your feelings. You kind of just sort of bottle it up.
No.
But do you feel okay? Because I've been that guy as well in my younger years. Like I've just sort of tried to put a brave face on, but it doesn't get to you sort of at one point or another. You kind of like reach a point where you just explode. Has that never happened to you?
No,
Really?
because for me, I just forget about it. It happens. Okay, a few months pass. You forget about it. You move on with life. That's how I see it.
Okay, but what about in the months that you're dealing with it?
It can be depressing. It can be depressing, but what I normally do, I just stick to myself. I stick to myself until it fades. Because I mean, some people deal with stress, emotions differently. Some people will have. They'll get angry. You know, some people they will cry. For me, I just ignore it, and I just say, "Hey, that's life. Whatever. Move on."
Okay. I'm curious to hear what the ladies think. Nadia, I think you looked ready to say something earlier.
I don't know. I have a lot of opinions, and I think it's a completely different point of view. And I'm not a man. I'm female, and again, this just goes back into the whole being heteronormative. And I think some of the things that you were saying, Anton, were kind of contradicting each other. So, for example, one, men should be strong. You just bottle it up until it goes away. And you were talking about in Japan how a lot of the men are like that, but then there is suicide mountain for the men to just go and commit suicide. So I just don't understand why there is such I'm not sure if people or the men realize that there's steps that you can take before you commit suicide to like just bottling it up. Like, I have to be so strong because this is what society tells me as a man. I have to be to just, actually, I can't deal with it, I'm going to commit suicide. You made a point about how if I'm struggling or emotional and the woman's emotional, then what will we do? Well, we'll both be emotional together. No one's asking to be rescued. I don't think there's any woman out there expecting their man to rescue them emotionally. If I can't process my feelings, that's for me to maybe try and find an alternative way. But I'm not trying to challenge you because you have your own way of dealing with things. I just think it's quite a dangerous stance, especially when we're talking about suicide and the fact that maybe men feel like they can't express themselves. If you have a problem, there's some things that are quite deep. By bottling it up, it's not going to go away. It's going to still be there. You're probably still going to think about it, or it's going to eat at other parts of your life because you're not talking about it in maybe a controlled way. And I'm not saying that, you know, as a man, you should be talking about your business to everyone. But like Pav will say, therapy has been good for you so far. I know it's been good for me. And I just think that these gender norms are really dangerous because you're basically punishing yourself. What it sounds like to me, what you're saying is that you're punishing yourself because you feel like society is telling you that this is what a man should be. So if by that law, if I'm going to say a man is not strong or on the brink of suicide, then they're not a man. It's like those are the only two alternatives. Like, do you know that there's things that you can do in between so you don't have to be strong and silent or suicidal? There's so many different states that you could be in. I don't even know where to start. There's so many things that I want to say and I just can't even express it all. I'm not trying to sound patronizing or, you know, playing down like what you said or your feelings. I just think it's really, really a little bit sad that there's people who feel like they can't speak about their feelings because they feel like they have to be that for other people, not even for yourself, but other people. It's just, I have too many thoughts at the moment. And I'll probably have a whole speech in an hour's time when I've digested it.
I just wanted to follow up on what Nadia was saying. So, I'm in agreement with what she was saying. And I feel like one interesting thing is redefining what we mean by strong. So, for me, again, part of the process of growing up was was intertwined with me redefining what being strong meant to me, right? And so I've gotten to a point in my life where, for me, men are obviously human beings. Human beings experience emotions, right? And I feel like the true strength is where you realize that you have an issue, an emotional issue, and you don't run away from it. You're brave enough to face it and to do what you need to do in order to resolve it. So whether it's going to therapy, whether it's discussing with a friend, whether it's seeking help in whatever form, the truly strong people that I really respect and look up to in my life are those people who have done just that, right? So I feel like again, when I was a kid, I guess my idea of masculine strength was something more along the lines of what Anton was suggesting in terms of just having somebody who dismisses or suppresses their emotions and just moves on, and it's like, the British stiff upper lip and all the rest of it. But as I agree more with Nadia that I feel like that is in the long term counterproductive, and it's not really conducive towards happy, long-lasting relationships. Which the previous conversation we were having, we were all affirming the importance of communication and of making sure that you discuss things with your partner and you're enjoying it on the same page. And I feel like, if you do have a long-standing issue that because you're a man, you feel like you have to suppress it rather than dealing with it, I feel like it is going to manifest itself in one way or another. And I feel like it's not going to be conducive towards an optimal kind of healthy relationship if you've got this issue that you're suppressing and it's manifesting itself in some way. That's basically what I have to say.
Can I just also add as well, that things like that, you have to think about the long-term effects of that. So that kind of behavior is very generational. So let's say you have children and they see, or the children take like their, ideals from their parents. So if they are always with, and my dad was very much the strong, silent, man, he never expressed himself. He didn't know what he was thinking. When my mum left him when I was about 7, didn't show any emotion till the man died, and he didn't let us know that he was ill. He just died suddenly. For us, that was devastating because he could have spoke to us about it. That's had a long-term effect. But you have to think about what you're passing on to your children. You're teaching your children that actually it's okay. Would you want your child to be in some sort of emotional pain and not be able to resolve it in some way? Would you want them just to kind of keep it in? They're teaching their children how to be children. And it just goes on and on and on. It's like, who is the person that breaks that generational pattern in your life? And it's not even like Dapo was saying about for relationship. It's for relationship with yourself. We all want to be happy people. What is life if we can't be happy? There's so many things that affect us out that we can't control. But what we can control is how we deal with things and how we respond to things. And if things are just being bottled up, it is not going anywhere. It's like a can of Coke. Like, yeah, you shook the can of Coke and you screw the lid on, but once you open that, it's going to burst and it's going to come out somewhere else. It's not going to go away just because you don't speak about it or deal with it. It just leads to generations of unhappy people making other people unhappy as well. So it's not just affecting you, it's affecting everyone around you.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Nadia. Sorry, go on, Anton.
But I think, to be honest, as you said, it's generational. It is, because just like a few weeks ago, my mom, her friend died, and he died on a Wednesday, and Sunday, I mean, he was talking to my mom and everything was fine, but he had cancer. He didn't say anything to her. And then when he died, the comment my dad was, "That's a man." If you know what I mean.
It's a dead man. My dad was like, definitely a dead man.
That's a man.
It's really scary because it's like you're. It's not you. I'm just saying this model of a man that's like this. Go into relationships with people not being emotionally stable. And again, I really don't mean that in a patronizing way. But if, like what Dapo's saying, but as in your sense of Dapo's sense of the word strong, which is different from yours, is facing your problems and dealing with it. If you have unresolved problems within yourself that you are not dealing with or acknowledged, that's not a very healthy, that's a very toxic relationship, because it's going to present itself in different ways. So like you're saying, a woman who's more emotional, well, there might be things that actually, I need to know how you're feeling. I need you to express these things. I don't need you to be strong. I need you to be a human being, because we're human beings together, not just a robot. If I wanted a robot, I could buy them from AliExpress, but that's not what I want. I want to be with my partner.
Yeah,
okay.
Sorry, I was just going to sort of ask Siobhan what her sort of stance was on this, because I know you said you're in a relationship right now. So what do you sort of define as strength in a man or your partner?
See, for me personally, it comes back to being comfortable with the person. So the person being able to come to you and tell you how they're feeling, and you not judging them or seeing them any different. Because I think a lot of men probably think that if they was to tell certain females who they don't feel comfortable, okay, let's say for example, a man was in a relationship with a woman, and he knows that if he was to tell that woman how he genuinely felt, if he was upset about something, he knows that woman's going to see him as less of a man, or if they do have an argument somewhere along the line, she might fling it back in his face and make him feel belittled. So I think that's why some men keep their feelings to themselves to avoid that from happening to them. But I guess if you're with a woman and you know that she's not like that and you're comfortable with her, you will be able to express yourself to her and tell her how you feel, and she will know. She won't look at you no different of a man that you are. If my partner was to tell me that he was upset for whatever reason, I'm not going to look at him as less of a man for telling me how he feels. I'll be like, okay, let's try and figure it out. He's still kind of the same as Anton with the whole no therapy thing, but I'm big on therapy. But obviously, as Anton says, I think that is just a Jamaican cultural thing. But when it comes to expressing his feelings, he doesn't feel no way to express it to me, because he's comfortable and trusts me to know that I will help him, and I'm not going to see him any different to what he is, and I'm not going to see him as less of a man if he cries or shows emotion towards me about being upset about something. And then I guess I keep repeating myself through this whole podcast. It's just, I guess, being comfortable with each other and being able to express the real you and not being guarded and only showing bits and pieces of you because you're holding bits and pieces that you don't want your partner to know, because you just don't trust them and trust that they will protect what you're saying and not use it against them. I see Anton shaking his head vigorously about what I'm saying. What do you have to say, Anton?
No, I agree with you 100%, because sometimes if you do express yourself to a woman, if you have an argument, that's the first thing they're gonna put you in your head. They're just gonna fling it at you, and then how are you gonna feel about that? So that's why a lot of men they just keep it in. They don't express themselves. Yep. And if they do express themselves, it's different ways. It's gonna be practically they're just gonna beat around the bush, and you have to figure it out. If you do figure it out, you do. If not, then that's how it is.
It is what it is. Yeah.
I think that's definitely happened to me as well, where I've been in situations where I've expressed myself and it's been thrown back in my face, and then I did sort of take that PTSD almost to my next relationship, and didn't, because you kind of like, as much as you don't want, you kind of sort of pigeonhole everyone. You think, oh, they're going to be the same and this and that. So yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from with that. So with your partner, does he express himself to his friends or anything like that? Like, or is he just completely like strong silent type, like all the way?
I guess it all depends on the topic, because he could be both. He can be the whole strong, you're a man up sort of thing. But I guess it all depends on the topic and what the friend is being emotional about. Sometimes he will obviously say what he thinks, and then he will say, I think you should just, his opinion, tell them his opinion, what he thinks they should do or how they should handle the situation. But then he has that same Anton situation, tendency, should I say, that sometimes he thinks that I should have, where you can be upset, but you need to brush it off and get over it. Whereas it takes me quite a while to get over things. Things piss me off very easily, and I could be pissed off for 6 hours, and he'll look at me like, why are you still pissed off? Like, get over it. You can't change it. But that's how I am. Sometimes I can be pissed off for a couple of days and he just doesn't get it, and he'll just shake his head like, you have time to dwell on something that happened 2 days ago. Whereas he will be pissed off for probably a couple of hours and he'll just shake it off and he's back to normal again. But I don't deal with situations like that. But then he tries to show me, or tries to try and make me deal with things how he deals with it. And I'm like, sorry, I can't be like you. That's just not me. If I'm pissed off or I'm upset about something, I'm going to dwell on it for a bit. And then when I'm ready to get over it, I'll get over it.
I just think that, just to summarize everything, it's easy to say that whenever a man should express himself to a woman, they always take advantage of it. And they use that against us, and being a man, if I can't express myself to a woman, and if I can't go to therapy because I'm a man, then what should I do? What do you guys think? Wallet, what do you think?
Why? I want to know why you think you can't go to therapy. Because therapy is for everyone. Anyone who feels that they need to speak to someone, anyone who feels that they're struggling with anything. Actually, my perspective is that I don't think it's a Jamaican man thing. I don't think it's a man thing. I think it could be down to it could potentially be a Black thing. Maybe I can even say African American Caribbean thing. And I think it stems from slavery days, unfortunately. I think back in the days, men had to have this persona about them. They had to be seen as the alpha male, and they weren't allowed to show any sign of weakness, because then
they had to be strong for, everyone around, the other slave that they were with. And there's a few things that I think it's a form of mental slavery now, where we still believe that we can't express ourselves, or it's still seen as, you're maybe the weaker slave or the house slave if you say that you're in pain about something. You're supposed to be strong because you're supposed to accept struggle, right? And it comes down to even the way our parents used to speak to us when we were younger. I remember going to my dad being upset about certain things, and my dad was the typical Jamaican man that you expressed, Anton and Siobhan expressed, where my dad also died last year. He had cancer and he didn't tell any of us. And just as Nadia said, I was completely devastated last year, and to the point where now I need therapy because it's something that I'm struggling with, because I just don't understand how he was going through so much pain. He was going through so many things. And I could see how it was affecting his personality, where he started getting miserable. And it was down to things where he wanted to do things and he couldn't do things anymore. And it was frustrating, but he just didn't know how to tell us. He didn't know how to express himself. And to him, he felt that, he had to be the man, he had to be strong. I can't show that I'm feeling pain right now. I can't show that I'm hurting. My children, which is, two girls, they're going to feel, that I'm not a strong man. I'm not a this, I'm not a that. Until the very end, we didn't find out that he had cancer until after he was in a coma and then passed away after 9 days. So it comes down to this. You need to have this persona. You need to be strong. You need to be this, you need to be that. And it's quite unfortunate because then you end up in a situation where Japan, I know you spoke about Japan a lot, but Japan actually has the highest rate of suicides and male suicides in the world. And it's because they bottle things up. And that suicide mountain that you're talking about is because men just feel in that society that they can't express themselves because the women are going to look at them in a certain way. And it's unfair that you can't, therapy is there and therapy exists, and therapy is for everyone. And I don't believe that we should accept the struggle. I don't believe that, back to the point I was saying, if I went to my dad with a little issue, a small issue, oh, dad, a boy upset me for whatever reason. Oh, why are you crying about that? That's nothing to cry about. I could never go to him and cry about anything. It's like, in my days, in old school Jamaican, in my days when me used to go to school and blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, so you struggle. Do I have to struggle as well? Like, do I have to live a life of struggle? Did you not say that you paved the way for me to have a better life? You said that you took on the struggle so that I could live better. And just because we don't share the same type of struggles, it doesn't mean that it doesn't affect us. And I don't know if we've already spoken about this, but it's almost like we're in survival mode, where we just we're going through these things and we just feel that we have to keep going. We don't have time to sit and process. But you know what? I think COVID has really taught us a lot. We've had a lot of time to ourselves. We've had a lot of time at home. And I really can see how now we're really processing, okay, actually this happened to me and I have this time to sit and think, how do I deal with this? And now we're not equipped. We don't know how to deal with it because we're always, on the go. And now there's many, many people out there struggling. But Anton, why do you think you can't have therapy? Is it because you don't know where to go? Is it because you think that if you do get therapy, you're going to be looked at as less of a man? Because that's not right. Like, I personally believe everyone should go to therapy at least once. There is some, and especially as people of color and especially as Black people, we have had to deal with so much different types of trauma. We've had to take on our parents' generational trauma. We have our own trauma to deal with. Do you know how this is the first time we have been affected by seeing someone die on media, like a Black person being killed in America? I think it's because we actually saw it and we could all picture someone like that, right? When I saw it, it affected me for about a week because I literally thought of my dad. I was like, that could have been my dad, right? And how do we now deal with this trauma that that is trauma, right? That's actual trauma that we've experienced. And we're continuously seeing these things in the media. When we go somewhere, like, Anton, you're very well traveled. So I don't know if you've experienced where someone's called you the N-word, or someone's not giving you entry into a place because of how you look, the color of your skin, the way you speak, whatever. That's also trauma. So why do you feel like you can't express yourself, and why do you feel like you can't talk about it or go to therapy?
Well, I mean, I have experienced that in a lot of places, but I think it's generational. I mean, I'm a man. What therapy? If I should tell my parents I'm going to therapy, they'll lie. They'll say, "Well, you're wasting your money." But people don't do therapy, and that's an actual thing in America also.
Can I just ask as well, like Violet was saying about, what makes you feel like you can't go to therapy, but also, and I think Anthony was saying, what do I do, or where do I go if I can't go to therapy? And I think there was something else. And I was asking, what about your friends, the other males? I saw something, I can't remember who died. I think when DMX died, and there was a whole bunch of black men talking to each other about how we wish that he could have come to us with these struggles. Why don't we feel that we can talk to each other as like we are like proper codies, proper homies, friends, but we can't talk about these things. So likewise, why do you think that? And this is for the men. Like, why do you think that as men you can't talk to each other if you're all like being all men? Can you not have similar experiences and outlooks where actually it won't be such a taboo thing, because you get it, you understand, you're going through the same societal expectations that I am. So why can't men talk amongst themselves? It doesn't have to be something that is spoken about with their partner or with the therapist. Why can't you talk to your friends about this?
I mean, because I think my friends, I think they share the same point of view as I. Like, I mean, I could have 5 friends and 5 of us are going through something, but no one will say anything because guess what? We think it's not the right thing to do because of society, and I guess maybe our culture and the generation. I mean, if you should try and talk about your emotions or something, they would say, you're a sissy. In Jamaica we use that word, or look at you, why are you acting so girly? So it's really hard. It's really hard to do that.
I just want to build on what Anton said. And yeah, I accept that there is this feeling, or at least, the friends that I had, when I was younger, there was this feeling that you weren't able to speak about these kind of things because, you don't want to be seen as being less masculine and all the rest of it. But then I think my response to it now aligns with some of the different threads that have been kind of raised in the conversation so far. I mean, how well can you truly know somebody if they're going through some really traumatic emotional thing and they haven't spoken about it because they fear that they're going to be seen as less of a man? Like, what quality of a friendship is that? And I feel like, for me at this stage of my life, the kind of connections, the kind of friendships I'm looking for are people who I am able to be 100% myself with. And I feel like if I'm hiding a part of myself or hiding an experience I'm going through, then I'm not being completely genuine with who I am. And I feel like to the extent that people then like that version of Dolapo, where he's pretending to be some Superman who has no emotions or has no problems, then they're not actually befriending me, they're befriending some fake version of myself, which is actually genuine. And this also aligns with romance and romantic, interactions and all the rest of it. A point that was raised earlier in the conversation was there's a fear that if you are open about your emotions, women will laugh at you and they'll move on and all the rest of it. I'm at the stage of my life now where I want that to happen, in the sense that it allows me to then pick out the women who I want to be with. I feel like the idea of me being emotionally open and that leading to a woman dismissing me as being less masculine, in my mind at least, that's kind of the behavior that you'd expect of a teenager. Obviously, I'm 30 years old now, and it's not something that I'm looking for. I'm looking for an adult relationship in which you're able to be open about what each person is going through and all the rest of it. So this is also part of the confusion that I have, because, I mean, we started off this whole conversation by drawing a link between emotional sensitivity or being in touch with your emotions and being, quote unquote, a simp, or being in some way, I don't know, the common idea of what a simp is, I imagine, is somebody who is not, who finds it difficult to actually find romantic partners, and instead is doing all kinds of other weird stuff in order to, in order to reach this goal. For me, at least, as I said, I feel like the kind of romantic relationships, the kind of friendships that I'm looking for, are romantic relationships, friendships, which are based on who I actually am, not based on some fake version of me, which is some fake, super masculine, never emotional version of Dolapo. I want to have interactions with people where not only am I able to talk about what I'm going through and be honest, but then also I can talk about what they're going through and we can support each other. Because, I mean, otherwise, I'm not really sure what the friendship is based on. It's based on what? That you play a sport together and you have like a few words and it's like, oh, I'm going through this really big emotional issue, but I'm not going to talk about it. And instead we have a very surface level understanding of who each other are, and equally on a romantic level, I want to be with somebody who can support me and I can support them. And if they're in love with a version of me which is based on Dolapo being some stern, stiff upper lip, masculine, super, that's just not me. And it would be me playing a role that's not genuine. And I feel like, you can be emotionally sensitive and you can be confident in who you are. That's what I'm trying to get at. Just because you're emotionally sensitive doesn't mean that you are therefore not confident. I was talking before about how what I'm looking for is somebody who's happy and confident in themselves. To me, that goes hand in hand with you being emotionally in tune with yourself and emotionally sensitive. So to me, there's the link between being a simp, whatever that means, and emotionally sensitive. I don't really understand what the connection is for me.
Yeah. Thanks, Dolapo, for sharing that. And also, Violet, thanks for sharing what you shared earlier. I think to sort of piggyback off what Dolapo said, I think I've been guilty of trying to be someone I'm not when I was younger, where I assumed that this is the stereotypical how a man is supposed to be. That's probably due to just, I guess, culturally, like the parents telling you, a man has to be like this to his wife and blah, blah, blah. And then, I kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, this isn't me. So why am I trying to be like this? So to sort of echo what Dolapo said, like, I just embraced who I am. And I'm like, now I'm just at a point where I'm just like, I am who I am. Like, and I'm not the kind of person that will change in different circles. Like, I'm just me consistently. So at this point, it's like, you either take me as I am or you don't. Like, whether that's friendship, like, I'm 32, so it's like, I ain't got time to waste to like try and make you like me. Do you know what I mean? So just, and also just, I guess, for me to sort of, I guess, counter what Anton said, for me, therapy has been to try and better myself and sort of unpack a lot of the things that I may, obviously there's things that we all have, thoughts we all have, but therapy kind of helps you sort of untangle it and unpack all of it and sort of get perspective. And when you kind of understand the root cause of things, that kind of helps you deal with it a bit better. Do you know what I mean? So as much as it's a place you can just vent and say what all your trials and tribulations, it's also a good place to sort of get to the root cause of things. And also for me, I guess, and I'm sure we can all agree that we don't want to sort of bring these kind of, obviously our parents have put trauma on us, like generational trauma on us. I kind of feel like it's our job to, this is just my opinion, I feel like it's our job to sort of break that generational trauma so we don't sort of pass it on to our kids. Like if I have a son and he is, I would never try and make him to be someone he's not. I wouldn't want him to raise him to be someone he's not and be, oh, you can't talk about your feelings or whatever. Like, and I think that's definitely happened to me when I was growing up, when my dad would be like, no, why are you crying? Like, men don't cry, that kind of thing. So obviously that kind of puts fear in you, and it does affect you, even though you might think it's just a little comment. It does affect you in big ways, like down the line. So yeah, I definitely feel like, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you feel like it is our job to sort of break this sort of trend of trauma that we keep sort of passing on to generation, because obviously as much as our parents have their own traumas from back home, we have new ones because we're trying to, we're first generation, I'm assuming anyway, first generation sort of immigrant children, so we're trying to sort of deal with their norms and then the norms of Western society. So yeah, I guess it's just an open question to everybody.
Yeah, I think that any parent should be looking, obviously, to raise their kids. Well, any parent should be looking to do a little bit better than their parents in terms of how they're raising their kids. So what I mean by that is, again, for me, the process of becoming an adult is me reflecting upon the way in which I was raised and some of the things that happened, and me therefore affirming to myself that, okay, these are the elements of how I was raised, which I would like to change when it comes to me having my own children. I would also say, though, that because nobody's perfect, right? There are going to be ways in which inadvertently I'm going to mess up my kids, right? That's inevitable. Even if I have the best of intentions, I might have a stray comment, which, as Pav was saying, could lead to them having some kind of issue or insecurity and all the rest of it. And so that just speaks to how when my kids then have kids, it will be their responsibility to say, okay, this is something that happened in my childhood that I would like to fix when it comes to my kids. So basically, nobody can ever do a perfect job because we are human beings. We're not perfect. But I think all you can look to do is to try and do a bit better than your parents did, and just try your best, basically. And as I said, inevitably you're going to do something that messes up your kid. There's no adult who has no issue whatsoever from their childhood, right? We were speaking about, well, Violet was mentioning before how everybody would benefit from therapy, and it speaks to this, right? Because there is going to be something which happened, which just because we're alive and we're breathing, we have emotions and all the rest of it that we're going to have to fix when we become parents. So, yeah.
But how can we help our kids, if we did not get help? And how do we know that what we're telling them is the right thing if you did not receive help? Isn't it? Like, I think they should just figure it out on their own. I mean, that's just the world. That's how the world goes. That's just my opinion.
But you wouldn't want them to struggle, though, would you?
No, I would not want them to struggle. But, I mean, how can you help your kids if you did not receive the help? How do you know what you're telling them, the way you're directing them? How do you know it's the right way? How do you know it's the right thing to do if you have no experience of getting help? How can you, if you're a blind man, how can you lead a blind man?
But you don't know that there's no right or wrong, I suppose. Like, you say, well, how do you know it's the right way? Okay, but how do you know that the way you were raised is the right way? When you're alive, your parents made sure that you, managed to not fall over a cliff or play with fire or, eat a knife or something like that. So I suppose, in that level. But I think, like what Dolapo was saying, well, to respond to your question, from my point of view, the way I see it, so I'm a little bit older and I have nieces, and I made sure my sister's very much one of those people who won't really talk about her emotions, things that exist, just bury her head in the sand, nothing ever happened. And I'm like, no, we're going to talk about this, or I'm going to deal with this. And I made sure it was my thing that when my nieces, and they're all grown women now, they're all like in their late 20s, to tell them about sex, to talk about like relationships, but not just talk about it in, oh, this is what happens, but actually these are some of the feelings that might happen, or these are some of the things that you might experience in life. So I think if you don't know where to start, I think it's just about a conversation about speaking to your children about their life and allowing them the space to just really talk about things in an honest way, rather than just shooing them down, and also relating to them on certain things. Like, oh yeah, I experienced the same thing. Or other things that I see, which I personally really hate, is if like a little boy hurts himself or falls over and they start crying, or someone's bullying them and they start crying, and they get told, don't cry. But actually, no, that I've got a cut on my leg that really hurts. So actually, that really hurt my feelings. Why shouldn't I cry? And just allowing children space to be vulnerable. I don't think that's a bad thing. You can teach people. We're intelligent beings. You can teach people two things, like, okay, you need to stand up for yourself and make sure no one takes liberties with you and don't fall off a cliff, or all of these things. But also, if something hurts you, talk about it and just let them know that you are here to talk about it. So if you talk about these things, if you find it difficult to share your own personal experiences, then maybe being that person that somebody else can share their experiences without the fear that you're going to judge them or think of them as something different. So, for example, you're talking about your friends and them saying, well, they'll just look at you odd, or just, why would you do that? But just allowing someone the space to do that without judging them, without your facial expressions being like you're judging them, being compassionate and kind. Because all it takes is for one person in your circle to just do that thing, like to just be that person without judgment, for other people to kind of follow. So I don't know, that's what I think personally.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely agree. But yeah, to Anton's point, I guess, yeah, fine, we don't necessarily have the right answers. We may not, because obviously every generation is different. They go through different things. There's social media, which wasn't really that big for us growing up. So, and that seems to be like cyberbullying, etc., is a massive thing. So there's obviously, we're never going to know exactly what they're going through, but like Nodi said, we can just have a conversation. We can talk to them, try and understand. I personally don't necessarily agree with like just telling them to figure it out themselves. That's just me, because me growing up, I guess that was how my parents were kind of with me, like, yeah, just figure it out yourself, whatever, because I could never really go to them for advice if I was going through stuff, because they would never understand. They'd be like, oh, you don't know what we went through, the struggles we went through, etc., etc. So I guess for me, I'd want for my kids to at least come to me. Like, I don't want them to, if they screw up, I was terrified to tell my parents whenever I messed up. Do you know what I mean? I don't want my kids to have that same fear and be like, oh my god, like, I can't tell my dad about this. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want them to actually be confident, be like, okay, my dad can help me sort this. Do you know what I mean? That's my perspective.
Yeah, I just think with the generational stuff going, I just think my kids, I'll just leave them to figure it out. There's social media, there's whatever they can learn, just like how I learned growing up. That's how I think I'm training them to be a man. If it's a boy, I just let him figure it out himself. Let him put his hand in the dog's mouth and get bitten.
Anton.
He will know not to do that.
Tough love, yeah?
Anton, no. We're going to have a talk after this. I'm going to have a serious talk with you after this, Anton. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to just quickly wrap this up. But yeah, thanks, guys. It's great to hear everyone's different perspectives, and there was a lot of different perspectives in this one for this topic. So it was definitely good to hear sort of both perspectives and even new things. I definitely learned some stuff today. So this was great to hear. Obviously, I do encourage anyone listening to this that is struggling to sort of seek out help, go to therapy. There's always all these resources out there. We'll try and find something and try and put it on our page if we can. And yeah, I guess that concludes our topic of why society views male sensitivity as being simpy, or whatever the word is. To send in your anonymous responses to the weekly dilemma and to get a preview of the next episode's topics, follow us at letthejameson.podcast on all platforms. We're your hosts, Pav and Violet. Thank you for listening. Always drink and share responsibly.